Hi everybody, this is Mika and welcome back to Swahili Nation and One Africa. Today is a very special day because right here next to me I have a very special person, and right before I let you introduce yourself, I would love to share a little bit about your biography. I did a little bit of digging and I hope I got it right. In 2005, she resigned from her corporate job so that she could give more to her people back in Kenya through Twana Twitu, a Kamba word which means our children, an organization that supported over 3,000 orphans and vulnerable children in Kitui, Kenya. She served in Kibaki's government under the Department of National Economy and Social Council, NESC, which birthed Vision 2030. She was also awarded by ex-President Mwai Kibaki the Moran of the Burning Spear. While in USA, she worked as an assistant vice president at a Wall Street investment bank. She was also part of the team that devoted itself to improve Kenya's image in the US. She is philanthropist, humanitarian, politician, wife, and a mother of two beautiful kids. And recently, President Uhuru Kenyatta appointed her to serve as Kenya's ambassador to South Korea. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Her Excellence Honorable Mwende Mwinzi.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here today, and I gotta say you're a very busy person, but I really appreciate for setting time aside and sitting down with me. It means a lot to me, to my career, and to Swahili Nation as well. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure being here.
Yeah.
Pleasure being here.
Before we jump right away into the topics and questions of today, I'd like to have a ice-breaking question a little bit.
Oh my. Go ahead, let's hear this.
Yes. It's how is Korea to you?
Korea is wonderful. With the exception of just this particular moment, of course we're filming in the middle of the summer, unexpectedly warm for me, unexpectedly humid for me. This is my first summer here. With the exception of that, Korea, both the country, the cuisine, and importantly the people are beautiful. I've only been here now for going on 9 months, and I wouldn't replace the experience with anything. Wow,
that's beautiful. And what it means for you to be a Kenya's ambassador to South Korea?
It's a very humbling experience. I'm representing my government, but importantly, I'm representing my president, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta. But more than it just being a point of humility and you know, conversely pride, it's a big responsibility because I have a duty to perform, and I need to make sure that during my tour of service that I perform my duty to the best of my ability, and that I serve well, and that I advance my country's goals.
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. So as we know that Africa is very huge with different culture, different languages, different people, and it's very diverse. And one of the challenges that we are facing in Africa is division within countries, division within tribes. It's quite a big problem right now in Africa. For instance, you can take a look of what is going on in Ethiopia right now, and what is going on sometimes during election in certain countries. My question is, how can we start a conversation of reconciliation between two different sides that they don't really want to be together?
I think we first of all need to distinguish between, I mean, you did mention quite a few points of separation, but we need to acknowledge one thing. Interstate wars are virtually uncommon now. What you see over the past several decades is more intrastate, where, as you mentioned, there's ethnic conflict and rivalry of that nature. So what do I think should be done in points of conflict? I think it depends strictly on the nature of the conflict itself. Some conflict is really temporary. You mentioned electoral cycles. So you know that in the periods leading up to an election and perhaps the periods immediately following. There might be a little strife, maybe it's just competitive strife, but you know that in its nature, if managed properly, it's largely instigated by politicians, some who will lose, but it's temporary, largely. Where you have simmering tensions that are ethnic or religious based, I think that is where then, if need be, don't even go outside. I think look within the community, because in every single country, even in countries that are going through turmoil, there are community leaders from across the spectrum, from the political spectrum, from the business community, from the political fraternity itself, religious and otherwise, who can come together, because if a country implodes, you know, everybody goes down with it. So look to the leadership, and then I think it really trickles down.
And appreciate so much for the answer. I think it's very important. I'm wondering, I know in Africa we have AU, right, African Union, but do you really think people want to be united?
Largely speaking, I think yes. Number one, there's power in strength. When you are fragmented, when you are divided, you have less of negotiating power. You basically you don't have that much to leverage, especially if you're using one voice to leverage a global position. But you know, of course, in any given situation, there are going to be entities that do not want unity, because let's face it, something like war is a very profitable business. There's a lot of profit in conflict. So you will have interested parties who will constantly, throw in some fuel, someone else who will light the flame, and sometimes, unfortunately, but it is a reality, those parties have nothing to do with the fire that's burning within. You know, there are many wars that are started by proxy. So I think in the end, it is up to the majority of the people to clamor and to insist on a peaceful situation. Because just think of it for 1 second. What happens when you're in a conflict? You know, you've got the destruction of life, you've got the destruction of property, you've got displacement, refugees fleeing from either one side of the country to another side of the country, or even across borders. With that comes complete destabilization. You are in secondary school and you suddenly have to flee to a different area. You will never get to complete your education. You were maybe rising in a position of a career that you liked. Suddenly now you find yourself completely not only your livelihood is gone. You're unemployed. You have children, and then there's the other things that come with conflict. You've got child soldiers. Countries that will recruit children into the war. You have young girls that are raped. So nobody, especially the majority, would want to live in situations like that. In contrast, think of what happens in a peaceful situation. Economies thrive, lives thrive, and in this era of globalization, I think it's for all rational people to support the process of peace and stability as much as they can.
So we know all the positive effects we'll have if Africa will be united. And what do you think are the possible ways to achieve that, or to unite people?
I think we're already on track, by the way. If you look at our country alone, I'm very proud, by the way, to say this, and I think it's important that I say that my president happens to be a Pan-Africanist, and he has been for years agitating for a common African voice. In fact, as far as 2015, he was trying to stimulate a conversation that has existed for a while related to the United Nations Security Council, where majority of the things that are discussed have to do with conflict in Africa. I think up to 70%. And yet, there's not a single African nation that sits on the P5. So the feeling, and it is one that I personally share, and that is shared by quite a few people, is that we need to reconstitute the United Nations and make it more dynamic and reflective of the current global dynamics. You know, we're way past, when it was first constituted. But domestically, what he has done is he has urged for intra-African trade. You know, we have been, as a continent, a subject of a lot of exploitation, going back to the slavery days and the colonial days, and even in post-colonial periods, we really are still suffering under the yoke of colonialization and slavery. So what he has urged for is, if we as Africans trade amongst ourselves, because we are very big trading partners, and then speak in one voice, we are much stronger than if we are independent. Kenya doesn't operate anymore just as an independent country, and of course we are a sovereign nation, but we are within quite a few regional blocs. We are a member of the EAC, that's the East African Community. We are a member of the African Free Continental Trade. We're members of COMESA, and different countries have different dynamics, but ultimately you are seeing that sentiment is shared, and more countries are coming together, not just under the umbrella of the AU, but even within their own blocs. Yeah. So it's happening.
I wanna talk a little bit about education in Africa as well, because the system that we are still using, most of countries right now in Africa, is the system that was imposed by colonialism back in the days. And do you think where we want to go, is it helpful for us to continue to use that system in our education?
Well, I can't speak for the rest of Africa, but let me speak to what Kenya is doing. Mm-hmm. Kenya has, for a very long time, done precisely what you're urging, which is interrogated what it feeds the minds of its citizens. So it has set resets, the reset button quite a few times. I used to be in a system where you were in primary school for 7 years, secondary school for 4, and then high school for 2. I happened to be the last of my class. Now, I'm sure some of your viewers will start doing their math to figure out how old I am. But then we went to a system where it was 8-4-4. So it was 8 and then 4 and 4. At present, we have revisited that again. And it's not just revisiting the periods that a child is in each segment, but it's also the curriculum. Because the world has changed since I was born. Mm-hmm. And you cannot have the same curriculum today as we did then. So we're constantly modifying ours, and I think that it's important that all other nations do that, and then key to it, going back to the Africanness of it, the Afrocentric element, is then integrate local cultural aspects that instill cultural pride, because if nothing else, we're defined by our identity.
Wow. Okay. I'm out of words. Let's talk a little bit about dual citizenship. I understand that you are a Kenyan American, and it was quite at the time when you were appointed to become ambassador right here, it was such a big news, back in Kenya and in the parliament. It was just a huge debate about it, that you should, let go of one citizenship to fully be Kenyan. And right now we have a lot of African diasporas outside who really want to have something like that. And my question is, do you think it's the time in Africa right now to have a conversation about dual citizenship? Is it something that it's gonna somehow change the dynamics in Africa right now?
Let me answer this by saying this much. Number one, an increasing number of African countries recognize and have embraced dual citizenship. You've got big countries, like big economies. You've got South Africa, you've got Nigeria, you've got Malawi, you've got Kenya, and the list is growing. If you compare the number of African states today versus say 10 years ago, you will see an upward trend. Now, look at the European bloc and look at how many countries in Europe acknowledge and support dual citizenship, and it will tell you just what the value of dual citizenship is. Now, when it comes to Kenya, yes, it is true. It is definitely true. It's in the media that I was being asked to renounce my citizenship, but it's important to say that Kenya does, since the promulgation of its constitution in 2010, Kenya recognizes dual citizenship. And so for certain parties to ask me to renounce my citizenship is actually asking me to embrace an illegality. My own constitution, the constitution that was passed through a referendum that was nationwide, supports dual citizenship for the litany of advantages that it offers us. You want to be able, number one, to trade. There's certain countries that in fact offer you citizenship if you simply invest. You want to be able to travel freely. You want to, we're increasingly a global society. I mean, I am a dual citizen not just because I was born in the US, but also because my mother is American. But my mother lived in Kenya since she was 1972. My entire formidable years were in Kenya. So I may carry a different passport, and I proudly do, but culturally, what am I really? Culturally, I am Kenyan. Now look at somebody like Barack Obama, former president of the US, whose father was Kenyan and whose mother was American, coincidentally from the Midwest, where my mother's from. Now, he's an American, he carries an American passport like me, but culturally he's American. But we're increasingly global citizens, and if our countries, particularly our African states, want to tap the wealth of not just financial resources, but intellectual resources that the diaspora offers, I think they should increasingly join the rest of the progressive world by embracing dual citizenship.
This is a little bit personal question. I want to know, how was that experience to you? Because for me, as a third person watching and listening, people, saying that, hey, you should let go of this. Like, literally, you have to deny one part of yourself, identity. How did it feel? Like, how was that experience to you? What did it tell you?
I think you're the only person who's actually ever asked me that, and I find that very interesting. And thank you for asking me that. There were different elements to it. One was sympathy, because there were many people who were fighting the issue without actually realizing that in fighting it, had I given up, I would have harmed our country. I was offered a very unique opportunity through my nomination to speak on behalf of and to fight for all the children that have been born in foreign land that want to come back to the country and serve. And I said it in a few different forums. Don't get distracted by the complexion and the highlights on my hair. Your average member of the Kenyan diaspora does not look like me, but they have families outside. Right now, we're doing this interview in a foreign mission. We have children born in foreign countries through their missions, or even refugees we were talking about. What are you saying? Are you saying that they are not entitled to come back and play their role, throw their hand into national development? So there was a little sympathy for those that didn't get the bigger picture, but that's all right because hindsight is 2020. And then there was this unique opportunity that then demanded tremendous sacrifice on my bit. People do not understand the impact that an assault of that nature has on one's family, has on their time, has on their obligations. But again, no meaningful battle, whether it is the right to religion, the right to employment, the right to be mainstreamed in any other way, whether it's wheelchair service. No fight has ever come easily. So on behalf of many diasporas, certainly Kenya's, it was my humble duty to do what I needed to do, and I'm glad that in the end we have prevailed.
That's amazing. That's great. I believe that this story, it will encourage a lot of young people out there who are listening right now.
Fight for your rights.
I have a final question for you. So what would be your advice to young Africans out there who living their lives, doing whatever they do? What would be the advice that you love to give it to them, even to me right here?
Well, I think you're well on track, so I don't think you need much advice from me. But back to what we were just talking about, and I said fight for what is for your rights. Conversely, I think you should fight for what is right. And right now, I think it is the obligation of every single African who has been granted the opportunity to cross a border to enrich themselves, either through education or a job opportunity, to give back to their motherland. It doesn't mean you need to relocate. There are people who talk about brain drain. There are others who consider it brain gain. You can also empower diasporans within your your host country. So in whatever you choose to do, I would say enrich the motherland somehow, either directly or indirectly. Empower somebody and use the blessings that you've been given to bless forward.
Well, madam, I really appreciate your time. It was very short interview, but it was very impactful. I believe that a lot of Africans that they're watching out there, I believe it's going to have a huge impact, on their lives and on their future as well, career. I really appreciate for having us here today.
Well, thank you very much. My very best wishes to Swahili Nation.
Thank you so much.
And keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Keep up the good work. God bless.
Amen. Guys, appreciate, man. Don't forget to subscribe, turn notification button as well. This interview will be available on Audiomack, Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, everywhere. So please stay tuned. Until next time, don't forget to love one another and spread peace wherever you are. I'm out of here.